Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There he goes. Canto 10, Chapter 15, verse number, I think it's 48. This is a chapter that deals primarily, well, the action item is Krishna's killing Dhenuka, but it's really a fun chapter. Chapter 15 comes right after chapter 14. And chapter 14 is Brahma's prayers after the Brahma Vimohan Leela. And in between was the 1 year that Krishna, chapter 13, of Krishna manifested himself for 1 year as cowherd boys. Each of the cowherd boys and each of the calves. Oh. Go ahead. Yeah. So that they could experience having Krishna as their son, and the cows could experience Krishna as their calf. A sidebar over here, because it's something I found very interesting. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's a verse that both Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta emphasize or write about, where it says, the language is really nice, but its simplified version is, however you meditate upon during your sadhana, that is the position that you'll attain. Not just the body, but the position that you'll attain after this life. Rupa Goswami gives as an example, prior to Krishna's appearance in the where was it? Somewhere. Not in Vrindavan, but somewhere. He gives the place. There was a man, a carpenter, which is like a Sudra profession, but he knew what the procedures were for worshipping Krishna according to the Pancharatrika system. And he followed that system, and he worshipped his deity in the mood of a parent to a child. It's in Rupa Goswami's writings, or Jiva Goswami's commentary, one or the other. And in his next life, he took birth in Vrindavan, and he became Krishna's father during that 1 year that Krishna was manifest as the cowherd boys. So that's a nice story, but there's obviously it's more than one thing. Whatever your position is, you can worship Krishna, and how you worship Krishna, how you are meditating upon within your worship of Krishna determines what your destination will be. You could say the rasa. Krishna reciprocates with the mood with which you worship him. And he's not like, a great personality. He's a carpenter. By profession, he's not a great personality. So chapter 13, the parents had Krishna as their son, the cows had Krishna as their calf. And it's important that during that period of time, Balaram didn't know. Balaram wasn't there when the calves and cowherd boys were stolen in chapter 12. In chapter 13, he didn't even, by Krishna's arrangement, by the Yogamaya influence, his omniscience was covered. And then he slowly, towards the end of the chapter, started to realize, hey, look what it is. And Krishna confirmed. Then chapter 14, the prayers, and then chapter 15. So when it's chapter 12, 13, 14, Krishna's still 5. And he's taking care of calves. Chapter 15, there's a significant transformation. Not only he gets 1 year older, but many other things start to happen. Like he takes care of cows, which means he then has the whole of Vrindavan to travel around, because he was, he had to come back for lunch when he was still 5. From 3 years, 4 months till 5, he had to come back. So now he can just go out. This event of having lunch out was unusual. It was a special event for the Brahma Vimohan Leela to happen. In any case, Krishna had range of the whole of Vrindavan, which was significant because the very first day they were traveling like a whole lot of miles. And that's when they entered the Talavan forest and the Dhenuka, because they hadn't been there before. And they heard about it. And so the flow, another significant change or evolution or something, transformation of the pastimes, is that when they were little, Balaram and Krishna, their relationship was like friends. And it's just starting to evolve where Balaram is now the older brother, relationship-wise, which has something to do with why Balaram, there's other reasons, but why Balaram killed Dhenuka, give him some of the action. And Krishna was honoring him and so forth. Another is, it's just starting where there's boy-girl attraction coming into the 10th canto, chapter 15. Now, something about Krishna's aging, there's a lot of this discussion because it's not well chronicled how old he was, and there seem to be things over here and things over there that contradict. But the preponderance of commentary is, when Krishna was 3 years, 4 months, he was behaving like a 5-year-old. When he was starting to crawl, it was way before children normally start to crawl. So he was, his child development is fast. When he was 5, it was like he was 9. And when he turned 6, it was like he was 10. And when he went to Vrindavan, it was 10 years, 7 months, but it was like he was 15. And there's all kinds of involved statements from the Bhagavatam and other Puranas that our acharyas piece all this together. So he's starting to develop attraction for the girls, and girls starting to develop attraction for him. He's 6 years old, but he's behaving like, a 9-10-year-old, and they're starting to develop some attraction. So after, there's a section of they enter the forest, and this is the flow of chapter 15. They enter the forest, and Krishna is speaking about all the creatures in the forest being benefited by Balaram's association. And the acharyas say that by Krishna speaking about them and glancing at them and so forth, He's lifting them into ecstatic love. Even, the immobile entities become filled, they become thrilled with ecstasy. And they move, the rocks move, and the river stands still, and things happen because Krishna's glancing at them and speaking about them and glorifying them in relation to Balaram, in relation to Balaram, in relation to Balaram. It's all about him, but he's bringing the focus to his elder brother now. And then there's a section where they play games. And then there's a section where, in that frolicsome mood, some boys, Stoka Krishna and others, say the tal fruits, but Dhenuka is the obstacle, but you're all powerful. Balaram is all powerful. If you think it's advisable, let's go. So Balaram enters, and Dhenuka is killed, and there's different descriptions from other sources besides the Bhagavatam. The most amazing one is from Garga Samhita. It's really amazing. And then Dhenuka is killed. And the boys celebrate, the demigods shower flowers, everyone's happy, and they make their way back to Vrindavan. So as they're making their way back to Vrindavan, because of separation from him, the young Vrindavan ladies cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission. And Sri Krishna, completely accepting these glances as a proper offering of respect, entered the cowherd village. Now there's lots of... The verse is, besides it's sweet, it's filled with rasa. So the commentary is filled with the stimulation of ecstatic love between Krishna and the elder gopis, the elder ladies, and the young gopis. The box is chanting. In Krishna, this is the BBT purport. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada describes this incident as follows, quote, all the gopis in Vrindavan remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking of Krishna in the forest or of him herding cows in the pasture. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved, and they began to look at his face the way drones hover over the honey of the lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing the flute, enjoyed the beautiful smiling faces of the gopis. Paragraph. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is the Supreme Master of romantic skills, and thus he expertly exchanged loving feelings with the young cowherd girls of Vrindavan. When a chaste young girl is in love, she glances at her beloved with shyness, jubilation, and submission. When the beloved accepts her offering of love by receiving her glance and is thus satisfied with her, the young, loving girl's heart becomes filled with happiness. These were exactly the romantic exchanges taking place between the beautiful young Krishna and the loving cowherd girls of Vrindavan. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is a Rasika Bhakta all the way, turns it on. What did the gopis do when they approached Krishna? This verse answers, they drank with their eyes in the form of bees the honey, saragam, of Mukunda's face. The gopis, who were not seen by Krishna, did not just glance upon him, but with full open eyes stared at him when no one was looking. Then, in a moment when they caught Krishna's attention, those gopis broke into smiles out of joy. Then, out of bashfulness, they stopped their open eyes and smiles by covering their mouths with their left hands and pulling their veils over their eyes. This showed a sense of submission, vinaya, on their part. In this way, Krishna became aware of the great sweetness of the gopis' love. He took their glancing as an offering, tat satkriti, accepting those glances with complete relish. Because he is the most clever at loving affairs, he entered the village. Paragraph. Now he goes further into those. In the two actions of offering and accepting, they were offering, he was accepting, and the bashful smiling, etc., there is a meaning. Their offering of respect was their bashful laughing and submission. His acceptance of that offering that had to be tasted is indicated by his releasing glances. In response to the gopis' offering of bashful laughing and gazing, Krishna responded by acceptance, with glances towards them. And he goes deeper. Paragraph. One can elaborate the scene as follows. And it's very poetic. Taking the flower of their glances, offered by their servants, called the sanchari bhav of enthusiasm, in the hands of their eyes. So, sanchari bhav means, it's a term that means not just a momentary ecstasy, but a steady ecstasy, sustained, steady ecstasy. Sanchari bhav. And commonly it's expressed through the eyes, but there's other ways. Through the senses, but commonly through the eyes. So with their eyes acting like hands, they're offering the flowers of their love. And the taking the flower of their smiles, offered by servants, called the sanchari bhav of joy. So the sanchari bhav of enthusiasm, the sanchari bhav of joy, in their hands made of their delicate lips, they approach Krishna, saying, take these two things, their sanchari bhav of enthusiasm and of joy, expressed through their eyes, now through their mouth. Take these two things, all that we have in our house. When in order to accept the gifts, Krishna engaged his servant in the form of his glance. His crafty glance became eager to steal the gifts, which were previously held within the gopis' houses. Therefore, Krishna withdrew his glance to himself. When the gopis revealed these gifts, then the glance of Krishna freed itself and, with great vigor, like a warrior, quickly approached the gopis and began to steal the two gifts. But then their friend in the form of bashfulness, who has the ability to cover things, appeared and began to hide the two gifts. As a fight broke out between them, the associate of the gopis, called Vinaya, or submission, arrived. There's a fight between bashfulness and the two gifts. And then the associate of the gopis, called Vinaya, or submission, arrived. But Krishna's servant, in the form of his glance, forcibly took the gift of the gopis' glance, along with both bashfulness and submission, and offered them to Krishna. He's a Rasika Bhakta. Krishna received these three like a great valuable jewel and placed them with care in the center of his temple in the form of his heart. This is the implication of the word satkara, or offering. Although bashfulness and other words have their own power of implication, because satkara and moksha have such great implications, they've been explained here in detail. Paragraph. Another meaning is as follows. The young women of Vraja gave up the pain they experienced during the day. He accepted with respect, satkara, their shy glances, appangamoksha, which were all bashfully controlled with smiles, and entered the village. Jiva Goswami. The scene is further described. The gopis are here described as the women of Vraja. Mukunda here signifies that he would deliver them from all suffering. They drank the honey of his lotus face, filled with fragrance, with eyes which were like drinking vessels. And by this, they removed the longing arising from separation from him during the day. They removed the longing caused by separation at night by seeing him in the morning. They released glances filled with submission, smiling, and shyness. Recognizing their respect, he entered his house with the village. I think she means within the village. Sanatan Goswami. By the sweetness of seeing him, their pain of separation was relieved. That is described here. They drank the face of Mukunda, who gives liberation. Liberation, however, is condemned because the joy of Krishna is greater. His face also gives that superior bliss. Or, Mukunda means he who has teeth in his mouth. This indicates the beauty of his face with red lips. They drank the honey of his face with their bee-like eyes. This means they directly gazed at him with great attachment. Though bees drink honey, their eyes desire to drink. The previous verse mentioned their desire to drink. Their eyes were also like bees in their being fickle. This produced a special beauty. It is suggested that their eyes constantly gazed here and there at his face and limbs. On this particular day, the women of Vraja particularly felt pain of separation. In the night, there was no pain of separation, for they could see him at Nanda's house. Or they relived their pain in the day. Relived or relieved. But at the end of the day, Krishna entered the house, and at night they could not see him perfectly. He accepted their welcome of seeing his face and coming with affection, or a welcome with singing and pleasing words, as well as giving gifts. He respected them with love. Thus, they showed shyness and humility without fickleness, vinaya, rather than lowering their heads out of humility. Then he freed himself from glancing at them because he entered his house. Jiva Goswami makes similar points. The young Vrindavan ladies cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission, and he, completely accepting these glances as a proper offering respect, entered his house in the village, etc. Now Gopal Champu is narrating the whole of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and this return back from the Dhenuka pastime is being described. Chapter 15. In this way, with great difficulty, they passed their days, absorbed in confusion of desires. On the day that the people of Vraja excitedly praised the killing of Dhenukasura, the doe-eyed women attained a pleasant meeting with their lover. Though the women were his eternal lovers, who had forgotten their identity in this birth, his beauty made them recollect the truth, and they forgot about fear of trespassing Dharma. Shukadeva Goswami describes this. This is verse 43. Casting sidelong glances and all that. Their eyes acted like chakora birds and bees, drank the lotus nectar of Krishna's face with greed. He felt this to be the greatest honor. This was suitable for them, since they had given their lives to him. They showered him with the arrows of their glances and entreated him with bashful, smiling eyes. He took this as the highest honor. This is indeed the conduct of persons who have given their lives to him. Though the gopis released arrows with their eyes to hit Krishna, the sages say that this act of shooting arrows is bhakti and true worship. Next, just as the wives of chakora birds are put in cages, the gopis were brought to their houses by the protectors of family morals, though they were not fully satisfied with drinking the beauty of his moon-like face. When they were reflected in the lake of the heart of Krishna, they appeared most remarkable, standing like pictures. They became most beautiful, like a gathering of glittering constellations, and Radha shone with beauty as if holding the moon within. Previously, when they saw him for a moment, their hearts became relieved. When they saw him repeatedly, they began thinking, when will we drink the beauty of his face again? The Sakis hid their feelings. Oh, friend, I do not have any desire for any other man. My nature is such that, on seeing any black object, I begin to tremble. Radha's body was afflicted with pain. Though she attained peace in her heart by meditation, she still remained agitated. Her Sakis immediately experienced her emotions and became afflicted similarly. Who will protect Radha? They became weakened by dependence on the will of another. And this is like way before the Rasalila and all those things. This is just the attraction beginning. But their determination could not bring about the appearance of Krishna. What use are dreams and eyes when Radha and her friends are afflicted by separation? Like nectar to creepers when the moon arises. By his appearance to the gopis, which produced various types of joy, youthfulness appeared in them. Continuing. This verse, text 43, is referenced in a number of other places. And one of the places it's referenced is chapter 45. Chapter 45 is in relation to Uddhava being sent by Krishna, entering Vrindavan on behalf of himself. Krishna said, excuse me, this is 45. This is Krishna just returning to relieve his father and mother from the prison of Kamsa. Yeah. Dear Father, because of us, your two sons, you and Mother Devaki always remained in anxiety and could never enjoy our childhood, boyhood, or youth. This is a discussion of ages. This is Jiva Goswami. Krishna addresses his father first, since he is more prominent. He addresses him as father to arouse within him paternal affection, since Vasudeva did not have strong affection because he had knowledge of Krishna as the Lord. Right? He showed his forearm form. In saying that they could not enjoy his Kaishora period, he means that they could not enjoy his full Kaishora period, but only part. He does not mean to say that he is now past the Kaishora period, since it is said, Kaishorau Napa Yovanau. They attained Kaishora period, but did not enter the Yovana period. They had just begun their Kaishora period. One should consider the order of their age according to the people of Raja. He lifted Govardhan when he was 7. Gives the verse, chapter 26. On the one hand, this boy is only 7 years old. And on the other hand, we see that he has lifted a great hill, Govardhan. Therefore, O King of Raja, a doubt about your son arises within us. Krishna held the mountain on the 3rd lunar day during the waxing moon of Kartik month. He completed the 7th year on the 8th lunar day of the Gora Bhadra month. Out of affection, the people stated that he was 7 years old, when actually he was 7 years, 2 months, and 10 days old. Taking that date as a marker, one should calculate the age at which he performed the previous pastimes. One should also consider the following statement and the example of quick development seen in a prince. This is, super sleuth. The scriptural references and deducting based on scriptural references, different things. So here's when Krishna started to crawl before children normally crawl. Chapter 8. Oh, King Parikshit, within a very short time, both Balaram and Krishna began to crawl very easily in Gokula on their legs, by their own strength, without the need to crawl. So they're toddlers. Therefore, it was not possible that Krishna lifted Govardhan when a little over 7 years old, since he was, moreover, the Supreme Lord. Not impossible. He was early developed child. He killed Trinavarta when he was 1 year old. Damodar pastime took place at the beginning of his 3rd year, during Kartik month. Some days after that, he went from Gokula to Vrindavan. So 3 years, 4 months. After 2 or 3 months, Krishna began to herd the calves. While herding the calves, he killed Vatsasura, Bakasura, and Vyomasura. When the 3rd year was complete, he entered his 4th year. Then, during his Poganda age, could the boys have described this incident as having happened recently? That's I skipped something. Yeah. When the 3rd year was complete and he entered his 4th year, in the autumn season, Brahma stole the calves and cowherd boys. He entered Poganda period at that time. Now, he entered Poganda period at that time means his physical body or his appearance was like that of a 6-year-old, even when he wasn't yet 6 years old. Here's the scriptural reference. Oh, great sage. This is chapter 12. Maharaj Parikshit asking Shukadev, how did this happen? How could things done in the past have been described as being done at present? When they returned, today, here's what Krishna did, but it happened a year ago. Krishna performed this pastime of killing Aghasura during his Kumara age. How then, during his Poganda age, could the boys have described this incident as having happened recently? That's a quote. Paragraph. Thus, because of the theft, Brahma stealing the calves, there was delay in Poganda manifesting. Poganda age appeared when Krishna was 5 years old. Though normally it happens when you're 6, but he was maturing early. He began herding the cows on the 8th lunar day of the waxing moon of Kartik month. That's, the Dhenukasura story. So he's not 6 yet, but he's entering his Poganda period. In the summer of the 5th year, he subdued Kaliya. So the Kaliya subduing happens in chapter 16. So according to Jiva Goswami, he's still 5 in the summer of the 5th year. Elsewhere, acharyas speak, I think it's Vishwanath says, that, when he transitioned, he was 6, which, started taking care of the cows, he was 6. And another way of looking at it is, he had matured like as if he was 6, but he wasn't yet 6. If it's a little confusing, it's because it's confusing. They give, they're dating things according to scriptural statements in the 8th lunar day of the waxing moon and so forth. It's very, very clear how they're calculating time. And there's different numbers associated with his actual age and the appearance of his age. Anyway, repeatedly it's said, the pastime, chapter 15, marks the beginning of his Poganda period. But here he's still 5. In his 6th year, he had fun herding the cows. At the beginning of the 7th year, he entered Kaishora period. At that time, he killed Dhenuka on going to the forest of ripe tal fruits. So that's another way of. A third option is there's a chronology mix-up, which happens sometimes. According to this commentary, although the Kaliya serpent killing is described over this way. Although the Kaliya serpent killing is described in chapter 16. He was younger when that happened than when the killing of Dhenuka happened when he was 6, because it's not chronological, which is okay. And I've had some exchanges with Shivaram Maharaj, and he's that the details of the pastimes are elaborately described, the chronology isn't. But here we go. At the beginning of the 7th year, he entered Kaishora period. At that time, he killed Dhenuka. Many places it says his Poganda age had begun. Krishna, Krishna. That evening, the gopis showed first signs of love for him. That's this evening's verse, text 43. With their bee-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Mukunda, etc. The pastime of subduing Kaliya and the killing of Dhenuka are narrated out of order. So there it is. In the summer of the 7th year, Pralamba was killed. During the Ashvina month of his 8th year, he played the flute. During the Kartik month, he lifted Govardhan. That's during his 7th year. This is when the inhabitants exclaimed that he was only 7 years old. Quotes the verse. His father, afraid of Kamsa, brought him to Braja, and for 11 years he lived there with Balaram like covered flame. That's Uddhava speaking, Canto 3, Chapter 2. At the beginning of his 8th year, on the 11th day of Kartik, waxing moon, he was bathed and given the name Govinda. Now he lifted Govardhan Hill when he was 7, and now he's 8. On the 11th day of Kartik, waxing moon, he was bathed and given the name Govinda. On the 12th day, that was the 11th day, on the 12th day, he went to Varuna's kingdom. 8th year. On the full moon, he immersed the inhabitants in Brahmahreda. He showed them the spiritual world. During the winter season, he stole the gopis' clothing, since this is mentioned in Varaha Purana. In the summer of his 8th year, he gave mercy to the wives of the Brahmanas. In his 9th year, he performed the rasa dance. He went to Ambikavana during Shivaratri on the 14th lunar day. He killed Shankachuda in the Phalgun month. In his 10th year, he performed pastimes as he pleased. He killed Arishta on the full moon of the Chaitriya month when he was 11. Far out. He killed Keshi on the 12th lunar day of the Gauna Phalgun. On the 14th day, he killed Kamsa. Now this is very different. This is now saying he was 11, because repeatedly, 10 years, 7 months. He was not actually 12 years old at that time. Oh, great. But 11, or 10 years, 7 months. 11, as mentioned in Bhagavatam 3:226. That's again Uddhava saying. At the end of his 9th year, he entered full Kaishora period. He does not age beyond this period. And the support for that is in the in Dwarka, the women of the palace thought Pradyumna was Krishna. Thus, the women became bashful and hid themselves here and there. And so he was 12. So Krishna was 12 looking. Though Pradyumna was young, he was similar to Krishna, or vice versa. Okay, so that now that that's very clear, we'll go to the beginning verse of the Gopi Gita section. How are we doing with time? Sri Badarayani said, who's that? Shukadev, right? Krishna, the Supreme Lord, upon seeing those autumn nights scented with blossoming jasmine flowers, taking shelter of his Yogamaya, decided to fulfill the desire of the gopis. Commentary. All respects to the tasters of rasa dance, Sridhar Swami mentions in his commentary that Krishna disappeared at the beginning of the rasa dance since he saw the gopis, quote, pride in performing the dance. He also mentions that Krishna seems to have been conquered by Cupid since he enjoyed with others' wives. Badarayani began speaking. He spoke from the strength of his greatness. Vyasadeva, his father, called Badarayana, because he performed great austerities at Badarikashram, characterized by worship of Krishna. Since he was omniscient, such acts of worship were expected of him. The result of his worship was his son. Shukadev revealed exceptional qualities of omniscience and prema for the Lord. The analysis of his name, Badarayani, thus indicates his glories. The rasa dance should be, so if you wanted to know what the meaning is, there's other explanations of the meaning. But this is a nice one. The rasa dance should be heard by such devotees as this. Another version has Sri Shuka Uvacha. This indicates that Shukadev possessed the softest speech, since he had the highest rasa as his very nature. One should hear the rasa dance topics with such a heart. Shukadev shows that the main reason for all of Krishna's actions was to give happiness to the gopis, to fulfill their desires. This produced Krishna's own happiness. And he quotes the rasa dance, he was the bewilderer of Cupid. His body, another, chapter 32, his body, the exclusive abode of beauty and opulence within the three worlds, shone brilliantly as the gopis worshipped him. And chapter 44, canto 10, what austerities must the gopis have performed! With their eyes they always drink the nectar of Krishna's form, which is the essence of loveliness, and is not to be equaled or surpassed. That loveliness is the only abode of beauty, fame, and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh, and extremely rare. This goes on quite a bit, so we're not going to even get close to finishing. But here's the reference to this verse. This happiness arises from the special experience of Krishna's form, taste, smell, touch, and sound, rarely attained by even the Atmaramas, and because the nectar of his lips is not available anywhere else. In 5 chapters, equivalent to 5 dear senses, Shukadev will describe the rasa dance with the gopis, who are qualified with the most perfect prema. The special nature of Krishna's and the gopis' new raga is described in these chapters. And then he quotes, with their cup-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the bee-like face of Mukunda, and other references. So it's very elevated. It's preparing the reader for the rasa dance. They're going back to chapter 15. This is already chapter 29. The rasa dance is going to begin. It's several years later, but the capacity, their attraction for Krishna was natural for them. Whether it's Krishna's eternal gopis or others who had become gopis, and you're taking birth in Vrindavan and getting their apprenticeship, and they're furthering their relationship with Krishna to join his eternal pastimes. There's sections of the Bhagavatam that primarily focus on the feature of the absolute truth as the source of everything. And there's volumes and volumes and volumes to say about how he is the source of everything and everything has its connection with him, and that Sambandha Gyan topic. And there are devotees like Shukadeva Goswami who understands both sides, the absolute side and the extremely fortunate and exalted side of the resident of Vrindavan, marked by, one can say, their rasa, or their confidential dealings with Krishna, which are so amazing that they don't even regard Krishna in that way, although he is. And so Shukadeva Goswami marvels at each one. In the childhood pastimes, he marvels at the what good fortune have Yasoda and Nanda have achieved this. What did they do to achieve this? Of course, they didn't do anything to achieve it. They're eternal. And what did the cowherd boys to achieve their good fortune? What did the gopis do to achieve their good fortune? The good fortune is not just, knowledge of the absolute truth, but the intimacy of the intimacy of their exchange requires that they don't have regard for Krishna as the absolute truth. Say it the other way. If one regards Krishna as the absolute truth, where's the intimacy? So they can't. They can't, because their love is such, or love is so strong. And that makes Krishna's pastimes not discernible to moralists, or what to speak of, mundane people. They can't understand. They can't understand. So when Krishna does things because of the intimacy of his relationship with his devotees, whether it's the cowherd boys or the elder gopis or the female gopis or anything, the rasa part of Krishna's pastimes is indistinguishable. And yet that's his super excellence. It's very practical. He keeps people who are materialistic far away, and those that are inclined in devotion, they can come very close. Then there's people that take it cheaply. They do, without having the qualification. They want to imitate those that have the qualification. And they're far away also. It doesn't give bhakti a good name, it gives bhakti a bad name. That's one of the things that happened during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, the unqualified would take passages from Lord Chaitanya's life, like, for example, the passage of Lord Chaitanya's life where Ramananda Roy was intimately engaging with the Devi Dasis to perform Krishna's pastimes, and people that weren't informed of the whole of Chaitanya's Leela extracted that part and said, this is Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So let's get together. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, it gave Lord Chaitanya a bad name. Because people weren't, this happens when people aren't educated in the whole picture of Siddhanta. Anyway, it's important to read Prabhupada's books to get the whole picture. And the writings of our acharyas, so we can understand more deeply the nature of the loving exchange. Now, just like this little description of Krishna's exchange with the young gopis as he was returning, it sounds like a romance, a boy-girl romance, but it's actually the other way around. The boy-girl romance is just a perverted reflection of that one. It exists in boys and girls because it's there in Krishna and the gopis. When it's there in Krishna and the gopis, it's the topmost. Though some people can say, oh, we like it the other way. And then they're barred from understanding Krishna and the real happiness that's available in relation with Krishna, without control of the mind and senses and everything else, without proper mode of service to the Vedas, through the Vedas to Krishna, through disciplic succession, gurus, and so forth. We even hit the target, what to speak of the center of the target. So it's a slippery slope if one isn't qualified to what to do if you're not qualified. We just follow we follow Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami and our great acharyas with faith. Our protection is there, and we go forward with reading and trying to understand the message. Prabhupada was very bold in doing everything that he did, including at such an early stage of the Hare Krishna movement, giving Krishna book. I mean, one of the understandings that we had at the time, there were two. One was again and 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 again. Don't jump over, don't go to the 10th canto, read through the earlier cantos because person's unqualified, go to the 10th canto and they'll get it all wrong. Again and again. And again and again. And then he had us distributing Krishna book. It was a big puzzle. Like, he said it again so many times, and now he's having us. And one of the reasons, there were more than one reason, but one of the reasons was he didn't know if he would live to complete the 10th canto, and people that were abusing and are presently abusing the 10th canto, and so he wanted to give a version that would pass the acid test, or would give people out there, at least, with his commentary, his summary study explanation of things, exactly who Krishna is, as opposed to the misunderstood position. But it was also for us to get a proper, at least, glimpse at who is this person that we're giving our lives to, what's his nature, and his abode and his associates and everything. He was very bold. He was very willing to take risks, carefully executed, empowered by Krishna to do it. So there's a lot of sweetness, there's a lot of all this intricacy of how old was he and what age, and I find it a little puzzling. And I've been through it many times. I find it puzzling. One place it says, several acharyas can collaborate. When he entered Mathura, he was 10 years, 7 months. It also says 11, anyway, but that's close. And he was mature enough to easily be, considered 11 or behaving like 11. Or, for that matter, behaving like he was 15. There's another explanation. But the actual age, consistently reported, 10 years, 7 months. And all those pastimes was packed up in 10 years, 7 months. Then it seems that I've been seeking somebody who's willing to make some definitive statement how long he remained in Mathura. I went so far as to ask Radha Govinda Maharaj, and he wouldn't give me a direct answer. The person on his behalf said he's not well, and he said just whatever Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. I said, okay, but what did he say? What's the pramana? But the attacks of Jarasandha were 17, then the 18th time. And by the 18th time, it was 23 Akshauhini divisions, and the first one was 13. And now how are you going to get together all those soldiers and have them march off to war? So it seems that something in the vicinity of 17 years was the time spent in Mathura. So that would make it, he's 28 when he left Mathura and went to Dwarka. Anyway, the pastimes are described in great detail and the chronology isn't. Although we just read something that was trying to stitch together, not trying, in an authoritative way, making declarations about how old was Krishna at different stages. And very specific, what month, what day of the lunar calendar. She has a very flexible t-shirt. Her grandmother pulled the same t-shirt. You're at the center, you accomplished. Well done. We got your number. Okay, so let's see if there's any discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the beginning of the class, you shared that Krishna reciprocates with however the devotees serve him.
That's important.
Yeah, and my thought kind of went to, sometimes there are times when I feel more like doubtful, or things happen in my life and I wonder like, what's going on, Krishna? And so I wonder, how does Krishna reciprocate at that time? Because I'm afraid that like when I distance myself, does Krishna distance himself, or does he reach out more, or like?
Well, he's both. He's not bound. He has his nature, and his nature is he reciprocates. And if we're in this, you use the word doubt, or I was using the word indifference during the Festival of Holy Name. You probably remember indifference. He doesn't interfere. At the same time, he knows, not just the passing phases of the mind, but the deeper conviction of the heart. And so he can reciprocate in that way too, sending a tap on the shoulder, or a bunk on the head, or a, turn you upside down, or, something. Because he knows that deeper conviction at the core of the heart. So that it's important for us, of course Krishna knows already, but it's important for us to excavate that and as recalibrate the direction of our lives based upon that deeper conviction. I mean, this is another way of saying the alignment message one more time. That bottom of the iceberg thing is that those deepest held convictions that we tend to get away from when there's a problem, or the other way, when things are just so comfortable, we become complacent, and that indifference zone is very common and comfortable, and it leads to the going away. So back to your question, Krishna doesn't interfere if we're pointing or displaying indifference towards him. On the other hand, he knows our nature and our deeper purpose, and he'll send help in different ways. Besides the fluctuating mind, there's the deeper held convictions. Krishna knows both. So I would suggest when you start to feel that feeling, and then you have that, the doubt that says, what's Krishna going to do when he knows I'm in La La Land? Just that mindfulness of the relationship with Krishna is very powerful. And leverage that power to, again, move in a wholesome direction as opposed to the bewildered or indifferent and complacent direction. Exercise your bhakti muscle, in other words, in those circumstances, however not so strong it is. Exercise it. Okay. Anything else? Checking your text messages. Have anything online? Oh, not yet. Well, we may be finished pretty soon. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.